Hey, what's up, guys? Alright, so I'm sure by now a lot of you have seen, if at least not heard, that manga stream is officially shut down. I'm not sure exactly how long it's been shut down. I just know as of last night, when I went to check to see if the new chapter had been released yet, that it was down. Which sucks because manga stream usually had pretty good, pretty decent translations. And what I would usually do is I'd use those translations to do my review. And then once the official chapter came out on the Shonen Jump app, which I have a subscription for, I would read it there and compare the two and see if there was anything that was missed out or anything that was mistranslated or something like that. But yeah, now that unfortunately manga stream's down, I can't do that anymore. Now I did manage to find a translated version of chapter 234 last night, and that's what I'm basing this review off of. But it was a pretty bad translation. Like, it is very much broken English to the point where it's kind of unreadable, and I don't really want to use that for the review. But since the actual translated version is not supposed to be out until either Sunday or possibly even Monday, I can't really wait for those days because those are usually two very busy days for me. So I wouldn't be able to do a review, so I just had to go off of this one. So if I end up getting anything wrong, if you guys end up seeing this like on Monday or Tuesday or something like that, and you say, hey, I got this wrong, or this was not actually what they said, I apologize. I'm just going off a very bad translation, and this is the only thing I have as of right now. Now, regardless of the translation, one thing that you can take from this chapter, even just by reading the raws, is that a majority of this chapter is all about Yuno. This is pretty much the secret origin of Yuno chapter, where we get to find out his origin, we get to find out exactly what his past was like, and how he got to Hage Village. But before any of that, the first thing we end up finding out in this chapter is that Yuno, apparently after the year and a half that he's been a Magic Knight, and the fact that he was able to gain so much popularity and get like promoted to the point where he's now vice captain of the Golden Dawns, he's apparently gotten himself a little fan club. It's actually kind of funny to see this because of the fact that up until this point, that's the one thing that Asta's actually always won out over Yuno when it came to. He's always been the ladies' man, apparently. He's always been the one throughout the series that we've seen have girls fall head over heels in love with him from one after the other. When it came to Yuno, it was really only Charmy and Belle. But now apparently he's got himself a full-on fan club, so he's probably outmatched Asta now at this point as being considered the ladies' man of the two of them. And to the point where we even see that one of the girls in Golden Dawn, who we see in the beginning of the chapter, talking to this other guy who I don't exactly know who that is. I don't actually think we actually met any of these three characters from the Golden Dawn we see talking about Yuno in the beginning of the chapter before. But anyway, they're talking, and you could see that it's implied that she's also part of Yuno's fan club and has like a kind of a crush on him. Which I guess that means that we're going to be seeing her, or at the very least, we're going to be seeing all three of these characters again in the near future. And you know what? Speaking of those three characters that we get to meet in the beginning of the chapter, before we even get into the whole Yuno backstory, it kind of makes me think now that we met these characters, they're kind of just like characters that we were first being introduced to, as far as I can tell, and we didn't get any of their names. So you would originally think that they're not important, but now I'm wondering if maybe what we end up finding, or what we end up seeing happen at the end of the chapter, if that involves them in any way. Like maybe one of these three characters, most likely the girl, if I had to guess, is actually the character that is important at the very end of the chapter. So we cut over to Hage Village and we get to see pretty much everyone's reaction to finding out that Yuno is actually the Prince of the Spade Kingdom. And literally everyone's freaking out except for Yuno. And at first glance, it kind of seems like he doesn't really care about this new information. But he does care enough, or at least he has enough sense to ask, hey, if I'm the Prince of the Spade Kingdom, how did I end up in a unknown, unnamed orphanage in Hage Village in the Clover Kingdom? And this is when the guy who actually introduces himself in this chapter, according to the translation, his name is Ralph. I'll check on that again when the official chapter is released in English, but as of right now, we're going to call him Ralph. This is when Ralph basically tells him the backstory, or uses his magic, which we end up finding out, I guess he can kind of peer into people's thoughts, or kind of has some kind of like telepathy magic that he can use to transfer his thoughts into Yuno, so that Yuno can find out his backstory. Now, real quick, I do want to kind of fix something. In the last chapter review, I said that according to, or at least based on the translation I read, that Seal, the person that Ralph named as being one of Yuno's parents, I figured that was Yuno's father, the king. But what we end up finding out is that actually that was his mom, the queen. And it actually makes a lot of sense that he would say that Yuno's actually the spinning image of her, because when we get to see her in this chapter, or at least a quick glimpse of her, we can see that Yuno actually does greatly resemble his mom. We don't really get to see his dad in the chapter, so I can't say whether or not he actually resembles him as well. But just based off of the way that his mom was drawn in that small panel of her that we got, you can see that he actually does take a lot of his looks from her. Now, when it comes to Yuno's actual backstory, and this is actually, in my opinion, kind of a little bit disappointing, but it pretty much ends up following the same story beats that we all assumed it would. And as basically Yuno was born to very loving parents, King Royce and Queen Seal. He was loved by the kingdom, adored by everyone in the kingdom, because they all assumed that he would be a great man and a great sorcerer like his parents were, or at least like his father was. And then, like I said, he was loved and adored, and then eventually the Dark Triad, which we end up finding out is all brothers in this chapter. So I guess that confirms that the one I had suspicions about whether or not it was a girl or a guy get confirmed in this chapter that it is actually a guy. But anyway, eventually the Dark Triad rebelled against the kingdom, killed off the royal family, and in an effort to protect the last heir of the official royal family of the Space Kingdom, Ralph's father, not Ralph himself, which is actually the biggest surprise I got out of the chapter, was that Ralph wasn't actually the one who saved Yuno, it was his father, took him to Hage Village after again being gravely injured in the escape, and brought Yuno to Hage Village, using magic to transport Yuno to the orphanage steps, and then that's where he ends off. And then we all know the rest of the story from there. Now, like I said, I'm a little bit disappointed that this is the backstory we got for Yuno, just because once we found out that he was the prince of the Spade Kingdom, this was pretty much a predictable route that Tabata was going to end up taking. Now, that being said, I'm not exactly upset about it. I'm okay with it, but I was hoping for a little bit of a twist. And you know what, now that I think about it, the fact that this backstory was so predictable, that's probably why Tabata didn't put too much effort or take too much time showing us the flashback of it. But in my opinion, I think that was actually kind of a mistake. I think Tabata would have served better by taking a page out of Oda's book, and since this backstory was so predictable, he should have gave us a longer flashback to give us more details about it, like basically take 2 or 3 chapters, like how Oda does with his flashback stories, and basically give us the full fleshed out details exactly what ended up happening in that time period when Yuno was born, and how his parents and family raised him, up to the point where the Dark Triad schemed and then eventually ended up taking over the Spade Kingdom from his parents. And continuing on with the whole predictable aspect of the chapter, just like how I figured he would, once Yuno found out his history and found out that he actually was the Prince of the Spade Kingdom and his actual backstory, his reaction was pretty much, so, he doesn't care about being the king or the Prince of the Spade Kingdom, he doesn't care about being the next heir of the Spade Kingdom. He considers himself as the Magic Knight, the Vice Captain of the Golden Dawns of the Clover Kingdom. That's it. He doesn't care about ruling at all. And that's pretty much the reaction I expected Yuno to have to finding out his true backstory. Although you could read it, and this is again based off the translation I'm reading, you could read it as if Yuno is kind of just shocked and in disbelief that he actually is the Prince of the Spade Kingdom, not that he just doesn't care. So again, it's mostly going to come down to the translation that you end up reading, or like the official translation once it comes out, and possibly even just the end of this arc once we end up seeing exactly how Yuno decides to go about his future, if he decides to forget about being the Prince of the Space Kingdom in service of staying as the Golden Knights or the Golden Dawn's vice captain, or if he decides to drop his title of the vice captain and stop being a member of the Clover Kingdom to take up his rightful position as being the new king of the Space Kingdom once his arc and once the Space Kingdom has been completely saved. Now, before Yuno and Ralph can even start arguing about whether or not Yuno should take up his position as the next heir of the Spade Kingdom, Yuno gets called on his magic device from the headquarters of the Golden Dawn, and he basically ends up finding out that they're under attack. And once we actually cut over there, we end up finding out that it's actually the newest member of the Dark Triad, or the newest member to get demon powers in the Dark Triad, is actually attacking the Golden Dawn headquarters in search of someone. Now, you would assume that they're searching for Yuno, but this is based off of the translation that I read, they are after someone who uses light magic. And as we know, Yuno uses wind magic, so it most likely isn't going to be him they're after, which is why I threw the question in the beginning of the video, what if one of those 3 characters that we got introduced to from the Golden Dawns in the beginning of the chapter are actually this light magic user that they're after? Because as far as I can remember, the only person sort of connected to the Golden Dawns who used light magic that we were introduced to before was Patry, and he actually wasn't even fully a member of the Golden Dawns. He was just sharing a body with someone who was. So the fact that we have not been introduced to another character in the Golden Dawns who uses light magic before makes me assume that they might be after one of those 3 characters. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much all that happens in the chapter. Now, I like this chapter, but it was actually very safe, very predictable. So if I wouldn't say it's actually one of my more favorite chapters. It wasn't even really all that exciting to read, because like I said, it was very safe. the most exciting thing about it was finding out at the very end that the Dark Triad was actually attacking the Golden Dawn's headquarters in search of someone, most likely not Yuno, but someone who actually is a member that they need. So yeah, that was actually the most exciting part, and I'm excited to see what happens next chapter if we continue with that story, or if we head back over to the Heart Kingdom and see what's going on with Asta and them. I would assume that since Asta and them have the day off, that they're going to be we're going to be focusing on Yuno for the next little bit, but who knows. But that's pretty much all I had to say about the video, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, drop me a like, subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Comment down below your thoughts and theories, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.